Hey guys, this is Joe from the Home Studio Guru, and today we're going to be talking about kick and bass, how they mix together and how they mix with the rest of the song. So check it out. Alright, in this video it's going to be different than usual. I'm going to try to do a full mix of the kick and bass on my headphone because I have to record at the same time with the microphone. I cannot put the speaker out. But usually I mix the kick and bass definitely on a speaker with a subwoofer because we are dealing with a low frequency here. And I always advise, if you don't have anything less than 10-inch subwoofer, it's really difficult to go down all the way till like almost 20 hertz. 10 inch is minimum. And your subwoofer has to sound really good. Not all of them give you, because some of them tell you it starts from 20 hertz, but they don't tell you that the frequency response on 20 hertz it's about minus 30 dB or something like this. It reaches there, but it's really, really low, so you cannot hear it. Even on 50 hertz, it starts from there, and then it goes 40 hertz, about 10 dB down, and then goes down, and then goes down. So you think you're hearing everything, but you're not. So you start increasing the bass because you're not hearing it, and so it's a big mess if you don't have a subwoofer. But for the sake of Home Studio Guru, I'm gonna try to do it in a most difficult way, like everybody in a home studio, how they mix on a headphone, and if we can make it work without a subwoofer. Let's see that go. What we're gonna be dealing with is a full song. Why did I do a full song? Because it's not, a full song, it's a lot of elements in it that will cover basically a song. We have a kick and bass, a snare, hi-hat, toms, and vocals. Why I did this? Because it's very important when a lot of people think about the low end of the kick, but they forget that the kick and the bass, they interfere with the rest of the song. Especially some of them, they have a full spectrum from all the way 20 hertz all the way to 20 kilohertz. So you need to deal with all this. It's not just the kick and bass. The kick and bass, because nobody hear a kick and bass in a song. You hear the whole thing, the whole song with all the elements in it. So you cannot just deal with the low end and leave the rest. So we're going to be doing both. So this is what I have here. I just want to say this is not a mixed song, so we're going to be mixing it here. I actually did some mixing for these parts, which is the snare, hi-hat, because we're not going to be dealing with that. But I'm going to be dealing only with the kick and bass in this one. As you can hear in the mix that we have a very dynamic bass. Every note of the bass has a different note and have a different frequency. So we got to be dealing with a bass that is moving, and it's not just one note bass, which is very easy to deal with. Okay, the first thing I usually do is check my kick timing. Now, as you can see here, I have the bar and the time here per second. This is 3 millisecond, 30 millisecond, 40 millisecond, 50 millisecond. Check how long is my kick, and check, I chose this song because it's so difficult to mix this kick and bass because they hit exactly at the same time. So there is kick and bass at the same time. So if you sidechain, you're basically gonna sidechain all the way till about 30 hertz, and then the bass will start playing here. So how can I hear all this? We were going to be seeing all this. So first, let's deal with the kick. Why the kick is too long. So what we're going to do, we're going to choose all the kicks here where we have, and we're going to reduce that all the way till half of it. So the rest here will be the bass. And then I'm going to cut this all the way till here, and then I want to hear my kick, how it sounds like. And I'm going to compare it to another kick that untouched. So what I'm going to do, so you will know what I'm going to do. So this one, I'm going to keep it like it was before. So we're going to loop that, and we're going to hear both of them, how they sound like. You hear the boom, You don't want that boom. All what you need is a boop, boop, and you have enough body in the mix. So listen to it. Because don't forget, you have a lot of bass here, so you don't want much of these information. All what you need is the transient, a little bit of the body of the kick, and some thickness, and that's it. You don't need the rest. All this, you don't need it. So imagine you have all the kick that long and all the bass that long, and they're conflicting with each other. You don't want that. So let's do it again. That's super. So let's loop this. Okay, then I like to gain stage my kick and bass. After I cut the kick and make it exactly the right time I want, I like to gain stage them to minus 12 dB. Now, what I want to do, use also this meter to get me the right level between the kick and bass. And this is how we do it, is through there is a trick. They used to use it with a VU meter, but here I am using this because I don't have a VU meter. So what you do, you play the music and your kick is hitting a minus 12. You add 3 dB to that. So the bass and the kick, they have to be extra 3 dB. So it will be about minus 9 dB. This is where I have to reach the bass as a starting point. If you can do it with your ears, that's even better. But if you cannot do it with your ear, this is a good starting point. Around 9.10, yeah, it's fine. Like I said, it's a starting point because there will be a lot of things happening later on in the mix and a lot of changes, because later on we're going to be mixing the bass, and I'm going to be compressing it, so I won't allow these bumps in it. So I'm going to keep the dynamic contained, so you can fix that and tune it so they mix together perfectly. Okay, let's see what we've got next. The second thing we have to do is check the kick and bass phase. The kick and bass, because they're hitting on the same frequency, they definitely have a phase issue. How we do that, there is a way by hearing, is when you hear two things together and you flip the phase, if one of the information went down or went up, means you got the phase right. So when the volume goes up in a way or another, with one of the things, that means you are in phase. When the volume goes down, that means some things between the two are phasing and they are disappearing in volume. So the energy is going down. So always when you check two things phasing with each other, always if the energy went up, that means you're doing the right thing. If the energy went down, you need to flip the phase. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Here in Studio One, I have this button, which has the phase for the kick and the bass. So I'm going to hear them together, and then I'm going to switch it on and see which is having higher energy, which means now they are in phase. So let's start. As you notice, when I'm flipping the phase, I'm getting a higher energy in the low end. Like there are places that are totally disappearing. So the next thing, what we do after the phase, we compress the bass. We want to compress the bass to contain it before I start mixing it, because I don't want it to jump with the kick. I wouldn't know what is the level of the kick and the bass then. So usually I always compress the bass with more than one compressor. I think I'm gonna add one more compressor. Yeah, I know it's a lot, but you gotta do what you gotta do. If you have to contain everything, otherwise you'll end up with a mess. So I'm gonna use this opto compressor. I'm gonna cut 6 dB and add 6 dB here as a beginning, and then play with with the attack and release. Let's see it next to the kick. Notice now together they are way higher, so you need to reduce the volume of the, because what happened when you compress, you increase the low and you reduce your high and you make the things a little bit higher. So the dynamic is low, but the sound is higher now. So you need to reduce it. So together they will be 9 dB, like before, the kick and the bass. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put Pro Q3 in here from FabFilter and a Pro Q3 in here. They are just empty. Let's put it on clean. There's nothing there. And Pro Q3 has this option that if you put it on different channels, they kind of sidechain, and you can see with the spectrum what's in the kick and what's in the bass, so you can see which frequencies are conflicting. If you don't know, most of the people know that, but if you don't know, this will help you. Check this out. So the moment you put them both, let's say you go to the Pro Q on the kick, you come here, where is the analyzer, and directly you see all the track that has Pro Q in it. If you press here on the bass and now you play the music, you can see the kick and the bass playing at the same time. So you know which frequency is conflicting, and you'll see this white shadow here. I don't know if you can see it. Sometimes it's showing up. Yeah, you see that? And a little bit in here. So these are the frequencies that are conflicting with each other that we're going to be dealing with. So with the kick first, as you can see, the highest frequency here is 94, but that's not, this frequency is the fundamental frequency, around 50 hertz. That's the fundamental of the kick. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with a low cut. And I wanna see how much I can cut from the kick and keep the same sound. So I can give a space for the bass in the low end. No, that's too much. I'm losing a lot from the bass. I want the body. Notice the transient, it goes here, and the body goes here of the kick. That's the transient of the kick. It doesn't change. The transient moves like that. Woof, woof, like that. Now let's shut it off. I added a lot, it's too much. I cut all the way till 50, and notice nothing happened to the kick. So don't be shy of cutting. And every time you increase this frequency, you increase something from here. Look at that. Something went up, so you need to compensate and bring it back like it was before. This is a good beginning. Now there is something about the kick I don't like, that it has a high in it, because this area is supposed to be for the hats and hi-hats, so you shouldn't have two of these because they will phase with each other if they miss the phase. So I always like to cut, and I give space. Like this area, I want to keep it only for the, while still keeping the punch of the kick. That's too much. Okay. Now we're going to do the same with the bass. So we're going to go to the bass and see which frequency is conflicting with the kick. So we come here and we pick the kick. So here, this is the frequency, which is the 50 hertz. But I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to use a dynamic EQ in this one. So switch it on and start the dynamic. And notice while we do this, we remove some energy from the rest of the bass, so we need to compensate for that. So what we do in this area where we reduce some energy, we bring it back also with a dynamic EQ. But use a bell, not a shelf. I don't want to use a shelf because that will mess up everything. Just and keep it that way and reduce it here. Just a touch. The whole idea is not to change, add or remove from the rest of the frequency. Just a little. Just to cut this frequency, clean it up. And now the same from this area, we need to do the same thing. We need to increase. Because we don't want this. This is part of the bass. It's a note actually of the bass. And why I'm using dynamic EQ? Because the kick and bass hitting at the same time. So whenever the kick is not there, I want the bass to have the full sound of it, because that's the full sound. It's just they are conflicting with each other. And that's before I do sidechaining. All I do, I try to disconnect the kick and bass and separate them from each other in the most possible way, and then I use sidechain. Because if you do sidechain and then you start to disconnect them from each other, they are already disconnected from each other with the sidechain. So you try, so the sidechain will do the last touches just to have the full space for the kick to punch and at the same time for the bass to be played perfectly together. Now I'm gonna use a compressor and I'm gonna set it to sidechain with the kick and always use a pre-fade. Now let's put the ratio maximum, cut the knee, and let's cut off this to 0 and let's calculate what is our tempo. Our tempo is 117 divided, sorry, 60,000. Let's put that 60,000 divided by the tempo of the song, 117 divided by 4 divided by 4. Use always this formula, is really nice. 32 milliseconds. So I'm gonna throw 32 milliseconds. I might change it a little bit. That's too much. I think the bass can be bigger than that. Because we did what we did now. Notice the volume change here. So you need to bring the bass back because we cut main frequencies from the bass. So we need to bring it back to 9. Yeah, around here. That's okay. Now, the kick has a lot of clicky frequency, but we're not going to change that unless we hear the rest of the mix, because sometimes these clicky frequency are very nice in the mix. But if you try just to cut it because you don't like it, it might not work. So you hear it together with the mix and you see what is extra, you remove it. Yeah, I can remove a little bit from the kick. Around here. I want it to be a little bit. Okay, now there is a big trick. It's very, very nice. I know it's not good for your ears, but if you can do it, it's really good. Because if you don't have a very good headphone or very good monitor system, you wouldn't know the mid-range how it's supposed to be. If you have a very good headphone that is really accurate, it will tell you that the mid-range is really high. And this is what I'm hearing here, but I want you to know that. You increase the volume as much as your ear can take it, and you will hear totally the mid-range, how it punch up. And if it's too high, it will show direct, but you have to increase the volume. Oh, I'm hearing tack, tack, tack. It's so high. So just do it a few seconds just to hear that. This is a very good trick if you don't have a very good headphone. this is how we mix it together and with the song. Now, the final thing, don't think this is it, because now, does what we do translate outside the studio or outside my headphone? Like if I put it on a phone, if I put it in the car, and this is the most important. I want to give more space. In this area to the music. And now I want to first glue the kick and bass with a compressor. I like to use any SSL compressor that you like. Mine is the Townhouse, is my favorite. You set the attack to 30 milliseconds. You add the release to fastest. It's at 4. Always the glue. Keep the volume on the lowest. Shut off everything here and put the mix on maximum. And now you barely have to see this moving. Okay, look at that. Notice how the kick, the punch of the kick and the bass, they become very equal when you do this. And it's very little touch. So if any of them is higher than the other, but what we're trying to do here, to let the transient pass of the kick and whatever in the body and the bass, the body of the kick and the bass, adding energy, it's bringing it back a little bit touch, like half dB, sometimes 1 dB, depends. The more you do a compression on the bass, the more you contain it, it's very easy to do that. But when your bass is all over the place and you try to glue the kick and bass, is almost impossible. So you have to compress the bass and contain it really well. So when the kick and bass hitting at the same time and you try to glue them, the difference will be like little frequency more than the other, and that's it, you're done. Now we have to see if what we did translate outside the studio. Here where I use my VSX headphone, which I did the whole thing normally on the headphone without using any emulation, just a normal headphone. Usually they sound okay, they are not really nice without the emulation. But that's why I wanted to try and see if you're a home studio producer and you're trying to mix your song on a normal headphone that you think they are really good, do they translate outside? So now I might change all the things that I did just simply if I hear them in a proper studio or in a car or whatever. So take your mix directly to a car and listen to it. Now, if you don't have a VSX, that's what would you do? You would listen to another system or you would take it to the car. So I'm going to put the VSX on. And I like this car because it's really, really high in the bass. So it will show me what are the mistakes that I did. Let's try the other car. Well, what I'm hearing is boom, boom, boom. So to make sure that my mix is right and what I'm hearing is right, is good to reference. So just put a reference. Any song, doesn't matter, just any bass, just to see how the car sounds should be. So I'm gonna just keep it on bass, not to hit with copyrights. And match it with the same levels. Notice my mix is boom, boom, boom. Now, if you don't know what you're doing, you can use a spectrum meter and you press on the layer. See, this is the area that's causing the boom, boom, this one. You can see it in my mix and it's pretty high here in the end. So what you can do here, add a Pro Q. And try to cut some frequency while you're listening in the car. Okay, so let's listen in the car. Let's first bring back the mix. Also depends on the sound you're using, so I'm gonna lock this up here. And instead of using a low cut, just use a low shelf. You wanna do very little just to shape the sound, huh? Just, oh, what is that? See, he's cleaned it up. See, very little. Also, what I'm hearing is that there is, because the kick and bass are hitting on some frequency and causing some kind of mud. It's about here. I'm hearing about the 130 hertz. Let me increase the volume. Right here. Just a touch. Just to clean things up. Let's see without it. The problem, if you're listening on a normal headphone, you would be fooled exactly just like me at the beginning. You wouldn't know what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm gonna listen to it in a Mike Dean studio because it has big subwoofers here. See. Now here I discover something else. The kick, my kick, boom, it's very high. That's the fine tuning. Now let's hear it in another studio. Let's hear it on the NS stands. Let's hear it on this little thing. Now, this is it. So now I'm gonna hear it without this. Now, the difference won't be much. Now, I promise you, if you take this mix to your car, it will sound exactly like I heard it in the headphone. And this is called translation, baby. That's what VSX is good at. So hope you learned a thing or two for this video about mixing a kick and bass and mixing it together with the whole song and how to monitor for kick and bass. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this session. There will be lots of this coming up soon, especially the next one, building a whole PC for music production. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to build a massive, massive build. Anyway, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. More coming up your way from me, Geometry, signing off.
This is the Home Studio Guru. Bye for now.